Hi, I'm Melanie.
And I am Saeed.
And we are
two writers
talking shit.
Yes, live.
Live from Larchmont.
Larchmont, swaggin'.
We have an extremely special guest with us today.
Extremely special, extremely talented.
Phenomenal.
I've seen her many different places.
She not only looks like an angel, she also sounds like an angel.
Voice of angel.
Voice of an angel. Yes. Heart of an angel.
Yes.
Now, you've seen her on screen. You've seen her on stage. You've seen her on your TV. You have seen her behind the camera if you've been on set with her. Please welcome Lynn Chen.
Yay!
Woo!
Very afraid to speak.
Why? There's so many writers, actors, up and coming people that want to know.
If anyone's wondering what that sensual skin to skin noise is, it's Saeed's just decided that this was the moment.
The perfect time.
To splooge.
You must be safe.
Sanitizer on himself and start rubbing his hands together.
Always be safe.
Can we just acknowledge that Saeed just got off the plane,
literally,
and sat down and pressed record?
Yeah, he didn't even have time to take his sweatshirt off,
no.
And it is sweltering. It is absolutely sweltering. We do have to have the AC off for purposes of
quality,
because that's what we always bring to you is quality.
Yes.
Now he's taking it off now.
Yeah, I did.
This is getting pretty erotic in between the hand sanitizer and you taking off your
shirt.
Hoodie. But yeah, so it's like Saeed hasn't had any time to decompress. So it's like we're just meet us where we're at. Just meet us where we're at.
Here we are, podcasting.
Yes, two writers talking shit, and
Well, Lynn, I would say, is most well known for her iconic role in Saving Face, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. I couldn't even tell you how many times I've watched it, and not just because of, speaking of eroticism, the nude scenes, which are so tasteful and beautiful. I'm not going to ask Saeed to comment on those because he's a gentleman and a scholar.
Yes,
and a poet.
Yes, and a poet.
But I want to say this is really important. This is Melanie speaking. This is Melanie speaking for Melanie, is that I was a fan of Lynn's before I ever met her. I mean, like hardcore fangirl. So let me just tell you right now, dreams can come true. Okay.
I'm going to tell you something too. So I was in a program called Mentorship Matters, and there was, somebody who DM'd me and was like, hey, Lynn, like, I'm a super fan. Like, she's got fans, you know what I'm saying? It was like, can you please link me with her? And so, I shout out to Madonna, but I definitely appreciate you for reaching out and talking to her. But she's definitely a big fan. So you do have fans. And
this is not the Madonna too.
Oh, it's not. Now, this is not
another Madonna.
Yeah, this is not the Madonna. But another Madonna who's very talented, and she's a big fan. You got fans all over the place. How does it feel?
I love my fans.
Yeah.
Those who know me love me.
Yes.
And some don't, but it's nice to be loved and acknowledged.
I mean, I had to say, I was a young hopeful. Okay, I had recently moved to New York City, and I went to the Angelica Cinema on Houston Street. And I saw Saving Face there. I had never seen anything like it in my whole life. Never seen people who look like me, except a million times better, as the leads of a film. I'd never seen a film like that was like so honest and so real and something that was so familiar, even though it was so different from my own experience. And I just, it's something that I carried with me to inspire me to know that there was a place for me in this industry.
That's brilliant.
And I know that it doesn't just play that role for me, but it plays that role for many people, which is why Lynn has so many fans all over the world who are so rightfully devoted to her. And then I moved to this crazy city called Los Angeles, and I went to a book club. Something I really thought I'd never do.
Not an avid reader?
You know what? I was a voracious
casual.
reader.
I'm a casual reader.
I go to this book club in a beautiful kitchen in an area not too far from here.
Nice.
And who was in the kitchen? Lynn Chen herself.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I tried to play it cool.
As you should.
Then we found out we had the same agent.
Yeah, we had the same manager. Like, it's kind of, it almost feels like, I don't,
Yeah,
but it was also felt like just kind of like very like 80s or something. Like there was like only 2 managers who represented every Asian person in the tri-state area. So first you were with Jadine Wong.
Yes.
She was the OG.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. And then was Ken her assistant?
Ken was her assistant.
So then Ken Park took over. And by the time Ken Park took over, it was already not a reputable business, I would say, by the time I got in there. But yeah, so we had Ken Park in common, and so I'll always be grateful to him that he was the first bridge between Lynn and I.
That's tight.
Yeah. And, you know, Saving Face was actually the first script I had ever read.
Oh.
Ever.
My God.
I had never auditioned for a role that was meaty or... You know, it was a feature film script. I had never read for a feature film.
Yeah.
Or if I had, it was only one line here or one line there. So when I got the script to read, I read it about 500 times.
That's tight.
You know, between when I auditioned and when I finally got cast, which took many months. And I thought all scripts were that well written.
No.
Like I thought this was just the way it was.
Right.
But maybe that is why I was able to transition to becoming a writer, because that was my first sort of experience reading a script, and I really studied it. You know, I studied every aspect of it to the point that when I finally booked the role and was on set, I knew everyone's lines. I knew everything that happened in between, every movement. When we had the table read, it was like I was just listening to a meditation that I had, you know, read in my mind over and over again. So I think, you know, that experience doing that, now whenever I read a script, I just sort of have that same sort of view because I like to watch things come to life. So a good script, I think, is a script that can come to life, and you can just feel it on the page come to life without even the voices there. You can hear them in your head. So that's what I'm trying to transition over to our writing discussion here. I think that's how I came about to start writing scripts, and why it came about organically for myself.
So what was that kickoff moment? Was I Will Make You Mine, was that the first script you wrote?
So I Will Make You Mine was the first full script I wrote, I would say. At least a feature film. I had attempted to write a feature with a friend, and when we started to do it, and I had read all the books, I had actually taken a class specifically for actors called Actors Who Write. And it was like, you know, going through the story structure, Joseph Campbell, all of it. Here's how you index card. Here's the, you know, all the beats you have to hit. And I just could not get into it. Like I couldn't get into my flow. I just kept second guessing myself, and I could just like never get there. So when I was co-writing a feature with my friend Christy Myers,
Love her,
who I often collaborate with and have put in all of my movies, she and I were trying to write this, and eventually we're like, let's just improv this, right? We'll just improvise this. We'll just write out the beats, and then that's how we'll do it. Yeah. Obviously, this movie never saw the light of day. Yeah. In fact, I think I gave like the structure to somebody who ran a film festival, and she just flat out told me, this is not good. Dang. And I was like, all right, I won't be a screenwriter then. I will just stick to acting. And it wasn't until I had a holding deal with NBC that, and this came about during a time when I was going to quit entertainment for good. Like I was really very frustrated, as I often am with my career.
All of us are.
But I was like, it was one of those things where I was announcing to friends in a way that wasn't like, I'm quitting and then turning around and being like, you hear that, universe? I'm quitting. I really was serious.
Yeah,
I was serious about this. And I was telling, you know, producer, director friends, like, I don't know what's next, but I have one movie coming up, that an indie film that I was going to shoot in January. And I was like, once that's done, I'm done, and I'm going to be looking for something else to do. Then, out of nowhere, a short film that I had been in, done just purely for fun with my friend Emily Chang, she entered it into the NBC Shorts Fest, and I ended up winning Best Actress and a holding deal with NBC.
Was that Parachute Kids?
That was for Parachute Kids.
Is that available online for us to watch?
It might be.
Okay.
I think it might be.
You know what? You just use Google.
Yeah. Just Google Parachute Kids.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting this holding deal, and I was like, all right, I guess that's what I'm doing for the next year. So NBC, so essentially a holding deal is when a network pays you to not work with any other network.
Exclusive.
And they give you resources so that to help you further your career. Mine was specifically for acting, so they were like, you can go back to acting class. And I was like, no, thank you. But then at the same time, I was like, if they're paying for it, then why not? So I went back to acting class, which was a big slice of humble pie for me, not only because I hadn't been in an acting class for so long, but also because I was getting my ass kicked by all of these young actresses.
I just want to make a note right now, because of course, like, Lynn is an extremely accomplished actor already at this point in her career when she's talking about going back to acting class. But I found out recently, a friend of mine did a rewrite on Halle Berry's last movie, and he's a playwright, and the way that she knew his work was because she does it in acting class. Halle Berry goes to acting class.
I love it.
So
I love it. Well, that was the other thing that
Yeah.
I discovered was that yes, we did have some people who had just arrived from Kansas City or whatever, but you also had, people who had been in the business forever. And it was really a great place for me to find community again and to find, I always often say, the class I took was with John Rosenfeld. And I often tell John that he's the one who gave me my mojo back, because after that, I started studying regularly, and I took classes with him for a very long time, and I actually ended up casting a lot of the actors I worked with in my class, because when you're in acting class, you often coach one another, and there's nothing like the confidence of sitting on the couch and telling someone what to do. And I think that helped me become a director also. So going back to this NBC holding deal, because I had so much more free time, and they had told me, we're going to set you up on some meetings with some showrunners, and maybe we can come up with ideas for shows for you to be in. I just knew that wasn't really going to happen. So I thought to myself, how can I be productive during this time, aside from the acting classes and aside from the occasional NBC audition that I have? What can I do to best utilize this resource? So I ended up writing a script. It was called It still exists, so I shouldn't say it was. It is called Let's Be Adults. It's a half-hour single camera comedy, and I wrote it, and to my surprise, my reps read it and were like, this is pretty good. And then they sent it to the execs at NBC who were handling my holding deal, and they were like, we're going to send this along to the head of comedy. And before I knew it, I was having a pitch meeting with the head of comedy at NBC. Now, it didn't go anywhere, but this sample definitely opened doors. I definitely started having general meetings because of it. And it also made me think, well, I guess I got something here. So when I Will Make You Mine presented itself to me, and it presented itself to me in a really crazy way, I was literally just taking a hike with Dave Boyle, who is a writer, director, very accomplished filmmaker.
Tell us about the two films that preceded it.
Yeah, so Surrogate Valentine and Daylight Savings were the first two movies in the trilogy that I ended up completing with I Will Make You Mine. And Dave Boyle was the creator of that. And both of these movies center around a musician named Go Nakamura. They're very male movies. They're like road trip, comedy, buddy movies. Very different feel than what I ended up writing. And when I saw Dave, we were hiking before Thanksgiving, and I had recently Marie Kondo'd my apartment, and I found the Daylight Savings trilogy. And when we had gone to South by Southwest in 2011 and 2012 with these first two movies, Dave always joked, this is the lowest budget trilogy ever made. So because the movies always end with a cliffhanger, I believed him that this was going to be a trilogy. I just thought it was a matter of time before the third movie came out, and then years and years passed and nothing was happening. So I asked Dave while we were hiking, I said, when are you going to finish the trilogy? Because, I'm a little bored and I would really like to finish it. Next year is good for me. Is that good for you? And he just sort of looked at me like, what are you, crazy? I'm never going to finish this trilogy. That's never happening. And I said, well, what if I help you? I don't know what I meant when I said that. I meant like, what if I help you produce? What if I I don't know. I don't even know what I meant. But he said, oh, great. Yeah, sure. I'll help you. I'll let you direct it.
That's fire.
And I was like, wait a second here. Yeah. And when we finished the hike in Griffith Park, we were meeting Ayako Fujitani, who's an actress, very accomplished Japanese actress, who was also in the second movie, amongst other incredible movies. You should see her turn into a chair in Michel Gondry's Tokyo. Anyway, I saw we were meeting up with her for a brunch, and I just turned to her and I was like, guess what? I'm going to make the third movie in the installment of the Surrogate Valentine trilogy. And she's like, cool. And I was like, would you be in it? And she said, sure. So I was like, great.
Holy shit.
Great. So then I literally just texted go and was like, would you be in it? And he said yes. And then I thought, okay, who would the other person be? Because I didn't know if Ye Ming would do it. Ye Ming is a musician who also plays a version of herself in the second movie.
So good. Yeah.
She's not an actress, So I was like, I don't know if she's going to do it. So then I texted her to see if she would do it. She said yes. So I was like, great. But then Ayako told me, she's like, as long as we do it before this time, because I'm pregnant and I'm going to have a baby. Wow. And I was like, all right, now it's on. So
deadline.
I was flying to Boston for Thanksgiving with my family, with Abe's family, my husband's family. And I just opened my computer and I thought, what would this look like? And I started writing, and I realized that if I was going to write this, it had to be from the perspective of the women.
Yeah.
First, selfishly for myself, because I was like, I need something to do. I would really like my character to come back. I would like to write something for women. And then I realized if I tell it from their point of view, then there's no way that it's going to feel like I'm trying to live up to what was previously established. Then it just becomes my story, even though it is part of this whole story. So I was excited about that. The Before Sunrise trilogy was always one of my favorite movies. Yeah. And I liked this idea of revisiting something. So I wrote that script, the first draft, that entire week when I was back in Boston for Thanksgiving. I came back and I sent the PDF of the first draft a week later to Dave and Go, and they were like, oh no, she's serious. I was just saying that, and I was like, when can we have a meeting? And that's how it started, and it really didn't deviate crazily from that first draft, although I will say Awkwafina was in the first draft because she said she would be in the movie, and then Crazy Rich Asians happened, and I thought, that's not going to happen anymore, so I had to rewrite it. But I think it all turned out okay in the end, even without Awkwafina.
Yeah, I mean it's a dope movie. I text you when I saw it too. And one thing I do like about your story, I think other people can take something from, is it seems like you were always open to new things and also accepting of the challenge. I think sometimes people don't be open to new things, and then they also get overwhelmed with the challenge. Because when he says, hey, you could direct it, you could easily be like, whoa, no. You could, it's so many people that would backpedal. I think that's super dope. And I also think that's a quality in you that continues to let you have success. You know what I'm saying? Is being open to go after.
What else is that it's a lot of people, especially in our industry, right? Whether you're an actor or you're a writer or you're a director or you're aspiring to be those things, a lot of people say, I'm going to do this, or they say, I'm going to do that. And then they never, ever do it. And a lot of times I think that it's a fear of failure, but it's also sometimes a fear of success. So you were able to not be held back by either of those demons. So what's your approach for that? Because there's so many people who are so terrified to move forward,
Facts.
even though they want it so badly. So tell us your secrets.
Well, I had written a blog for 10 years called The Actor's Diet, which turned into also another blog called Thick Dumpling Skin. And both of those turned into podcasts. And because I was so used to this sort of DIY way of doing things, and sort of saw how showing the mess and the process of it all was actually a huge part of, for lack of a better word, my brand, or like just the way I go about doing things. Like I don't do things perfectly. I do show the mess, and I am really honest about when I fail. But at the same time, I'm a completist. Maybe it's because I'm a Capricorn. Maybe that's what it is. I have no idea. But I, like, even when for example, with my podcast, even when I was at episode 22 and I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't need to interview anyone else. I stuck with it until episode 100 because I needed to have that endpoint. And even with my blog, when I knew year 7, I don't think I want to be taking photos of my food every single day. I still took it to year 10. Maybe I like those nice round numbers. Maybe
the O's, the zeros. Were you like that as a kid? Like that you were like, you had to finish every project that you started, or?
I guess so. I guess that's something my father instilled in me.
Yeah.
I also cannot I've been in part of so many projects that never see the light of day that it really frustrates me. And I will say that that's not the case with me now. Like I'm not precious about, saying no to things now for myself, like of quitting early. But for those particular projects, it was a matter of stretching myself and making myself uncomfortable. And I'm glad that I did. But I think because of that, I see that sometimes you need to push yourself past that point of comfort, because it really, like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I think I've seen in cases, like I've had videos go viral, I've had things flop, and at the end of the day, nobody remembers. So it's like, I don't know what I'm so afraid of putting something out there. Like, even if it's horrible, people forget and you move on, and you got to keep creating. So that's sort of my attitude about it. I think there was definitely moments when I was directing that I wanted to be like, to shelve this. This was a horrible, very expensive mistake that I will never make again. But I'm so glad that I pushed myself past certain points, like past the first cut, past the first test screening, past the first rejections, like all of those things were moments where I was just like, all right, I can see why that other short that I did 5 years ago never got past the test screening. Because it's really heartbreaking when you create something that's so personal and you realize, like, when it's the possibility, it's so exciting. And then when you see it and it's not in its finished form yet, you can sort of second guess yourself and just be like, oh, well, that didn't translate the way I wanted it to. And because of that, I'm afraid that I won't be able to. And there's just so, like, the finish line is so far away that I just don't know if I can get there. And that is why I don't really take on anything that I really love in general. When it comes to creation, like when it comes to acting, it's fine. Like it's like I've been doing it forever. It's very easy. Like if a part isn't really speaking to me, but it pays well, or the people are fun, like not a big deal, because it doesn't take that much out of me.
Right.
But when it comes to directing or writing or doing something that involves a lot of time and a lot of emotional bandwidth, like I don't think certain things are worth it. And so if it's not really something that I think I can really carry through, then I'm not going to do it. Plus, it's like taking an opportunity away from somebody who might need that opportunity, and it might feed them. And there's no reason I should take on a project if somebody else can do it so much better, because it's going to be hard no matter what.
Yeah, somebody just gave me, one of my mentors told me, like, you got to choose shit that you're excited about, but that you also feel like you can do well. Mm-hmm. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like sometimes if money is the only, you know what I mean, motivator or reason why you're doing something, and then, you know, you end up picking some shit that you're not excited about or that you feel like you can't do that somebody else could do well. Like, you know what I'm saying? Then it's like you're standing in the way of that happening. But at the same time, it's like, you just got to go with the stuff that you feel like you can nail, which is hard, you know, which is sometimes hard to do, you know?
Yeah, especially if you get scared that there's nothing else there. I can definitely relate to that feeling of like being afraid that like, oh, well, if I say no to this, then what am I going to be doing? But I think I've also learned to just push past that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever have imposter syndrome?
I think I've heard the term imposter syndrome so much that by the time I was like feeling it, I was like, this is imposter syndrome.
This is what they talk about.
Yeah,
This is what it is.
Yeah.
But again, my brand is mess. So I don't feel it because listen, I didn't have any parents telling me like you can do whatever you want. You can be whatever. Like that did not exist in my growing up. I had to do that to myself. I've had to do it to myself. So I'm really good at deluding myself,
self-motivation,
self-motivating, and I know I'm not perfect, but at the same time, I'm the best. I do the best I can. So I just don't feel shame about it. I don't allow myself to feel like I'm sure there's people who can do things better than me, and I'm sure there's situations I'm in that other people can do better. But if it's my job, then I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it the best I can. And if it's not good enough, then oh well. I don't know what to say. That's really it.
Excellent attitude.
Yeah. Side note, I just want to say you were on one of my mom's all-time favorite shows, Grey's Anatomy, and I just wanted to say, just shout that out because my mom has watched, I think, all 30 seasons of Grey's Anatomy.
Wow.
It's not 30.
It's 18.
It's 18.
Going on 19.
But how was that experience, being on there and, how was it? Like, I know that it's such a humongous show, and how was it?
I mean, when I booked the job, there was a lot of excitement around it, obviously because it's such a huge show. And I think that was the first time in a really long time that when I showed up to set day one, and Debbie Allen was there, and it was like 5:30 a.m. and I was the only one. I was the new kid. I was the only one who had like a long doctory monologue of a bunch of medical things to say, and they had to throw me right into surgery on my first day.
Fire.
I definitely had that moment where like my brain stopped. I did the thing I've never done ever in my entire career in 30 years. I called cut. I called cut on Debbie Allen's set because I couldn't remember my line.
No, Lynn, no.
I was like, hold on. I like my mind went so blank, and that's never ever happened and what happened was when that happened, I went to the side, and of course, like script supervisor ran across the room, to be like, she doesn't know her lines. But I knew this is fear. Yeah. This is absolute terror and fear and pressure. Right. And what I had to do in that moment, and also I was masked because we were all like doing protocol. Yeah. I could barely breathe to do my deep breathing.
You're doing a surgery, so they had a mask.
So I was just like, I had to like have that conversation with myself. Because the fear was the imposter syndrome, right? Yeah. The fear was like, who are you? Yep. There's Debbie Allen. Why did they choose you? Yeah. Just go home, little girl. Like, this is not like
everything.
Like, all of it was in my head. Yeah. And even though I know these lines backwards and forward, it was just all of it, was getting to me. And I just really had to like have a moment with myself. I slowly pushed the script supervisor away, and I said, just give me a few minutes. And I turned around and I just breathed as best I could into my mask. And I said to myself about 20 times, you got this, 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 until, and I kept thinking it up until I walked to my spot, and Debbie called action, and the lines were coming out of my mouth, and I was still going, you got this, you got this, you got this, even as the words were coming out of my mouth. And that day, I remember at the end of the day, as I was riding back on the golf cart back to my trailer, I looked up because it was night, and I saw the stars. And also it was like the anniversary of the day my father died. And I just like, I put on my headphones and I played his favorite piece, his favorite classical piece, and I blasted in my ears. And I remember thinking to myself, I can do anything now.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
And I just love those moments because whenever I come across like another one, I can just plug into that sense memory and just be like, you'll do it. And of course, you know, they didn't call me for 2 weeks after that. And I was like, I am fired. I've been fired. But of course, then they called back and I was like, all right, it's good. And, you know, I've watched other actors on Grey's Anatomy call cut too, you know, not call cut, but like be like, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm saying, you know? So after a while, you know, you just realize this is humanity, and this is part of it, and you'll get past it. It's fine.
Yeah, and I think we've all had that moment in one way or another of like having to tell yourself, you know, you got this, you can do this, you got this, you can do this, you can do, you know what I mean? Like we've all had that moment of just having to get yourself back in the game in one way or another. And like that, but that, it's like that sinking feeling of the pit of your stomach of you're like, oh my God, like I can't get to the surface, you know, like I'm going to drown down here. Like that is, you know, that's the worst feeling.
But you made it through, which is dope.
Yeah. Now, Lynn, can you tell us, writing wise, what project you're working on now, or is it under wraps?
I don't think it's under wraps. I mean, it's funny because yesterday I wrote out all of the things that I kind of have in, I guess in development. Yeah. Like sort of, and I realized there's quite a bit, and it's just weird because it feels like I've planted a garden and I'm just like hovering, waiting for things to grow. They're all in different phases. So I guess the most exciting thing is that I'm currently pitching a show that I co-wrote with Jordan Carlos.
Love Jordan.
And John Leguizamo's our EP. And so we're shopping that. I have adapted a screenplay based on a book that you all have read, and waiting to see what happens with that in terms of production companies, whether I'll stay on as writer or not. And then, you know, I have several scripts that I've written that are just sort of like, you know, they're just sort of samples that are there that I just have at the ready for whenever I have generals or whenever I meet someone who it might work with, or when I meet an actor who might be able to greenlight it. I just sort of have them there. I really feel pretty strongly about just creating for creation's sake. So if an idea excites me, I just go with it if I have the bandwidth and the time. I'm also taking a video editing class right now. Because I think that as a storyteller and as a director, it's really, really, really important to understand structure and editing. And the more comfortable I feel with that, I just finished directing a short film that I also wrote. And
we can say that it's pretty phenomenal. We've seen it.
No, it's dope.
Thank you.
We've got the inside track on that one.
But the whole process of editing and making sure you can translate what your vision is to the editor, you can't do it unless you've done it yourself, because otherwise you're just saying, and then you snip, and then you boop boop, and then you
la la.
You need the language. So I think all of these things help you become a better storyteller. And at the end of the day, writing and creating and acting and directing and video editing and all of it helps you be able to translate exactly what you want so that you're not stuck in that feeling of like, oh no, the idea in my head is not coming forth, because it will get there. You just need the tools to be able to translate it so that the people who can help you finalize your vision. Because it's really hard to see what that ends up looking like in the end. And I don't know, it's such a weird thing, because there's so much of it that's unexplainable, untangible, unrelatable.
Yeah.
But when you see it,
Magic.
when you feel it, you know it. And yeah, there's nothing better. That's the drive. That's why we do this.
Yeah. Nah. One thing, we got some more questions, but definitely one thing that I think is super dope, just a sidebar, is listen, everybody out there, she took classes. It's okay to take classes.
It's amazing to take classes.
Like, it's funny because I had went to San Francisco State, then did like a whole 20 years of being a rapper. And then I came back, and it was a class that actually motivated me and I took a class that was like beneath me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I took screenwriting 1 when it was like, I already had you know what I'm saying? And that prompted me being in that class. I remember the teacher was like, yo, you're out of all these students, you can make your film. And I was like, oh shit, I guess I still got it. And then that prompted me to take the UCLA TV writing class. And I'm thinking about taking another class now. So one thing I really love about you is like the fact that you're always trying to get better. And I feel like it's kind of like with Kobe, where it was like he would take a certain amount of shots every goddamn morning. You know what I'm saying? But he's Kobe. Like, why the fuck are you taking shots? He's taking 1,000 shots and constantly working on your craft. And to me, that's super dope. And I think more people out there, like upcoming writers, always hit me and they'll be like, what contest should I enter in? What should I do? And can you give me this script to somebody else? I'm like, bro, you could do that. But at the same time, like I do feel like you should take a class, because it's going to do 2 things. 1, you get feedback, you're going to get better, you're going to learn some new skills. And 2, it gives you a deadline, which without deadlines, we ain't going to get shit done. Let's just be real. We're writers. We procrastinate.
The deadline alone is reason enough to take a writing class.
I agree.
And also just like the structure of it, you know, you're going to meet once a week, you know that like you're going to talk about it for X amount of time. It's also like the beginnings of sort of if you don't have a network of writers who you respect and you have, you know, sort of like community with, that's a great place to start to look for them, because it's like, what better way to get to know a writer than through their writing, right? So if there's someone who in the class, you think their work is awesome, you really respond to it,
reach out,
lay the railroad tracks.
I mean, nothing like a class humbling you,
man.
To really just, you know, I took Groundlings 1 and 2, and I knew at 1, I'm not an improviser. I don't want to be on Saturday Night Live. This is the track that people are on, and I already knew these are not my people. This is not my thing. But at the same time, there was the humbling experience of going up there every single time and just being like, wow, I am petrified and I am not good at this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And the exercise of doing that, I think, is probably what helped me in that moment when I was like freaking out over, you know, at Grey's Anatomy. Yeah. You know, like you need, your body needs to remember what that feels like. So I actually think, you know, even if you think something is a quote unquote waste of time and won't do anything for your career in the long run, you need those experiences. You need to be humbled. At least I do.
And
also, if you have a mindset that you think you're
done, you're perfected.
You're far from it. You're far
you
from it.
should always be learning.
We never stop learning, and there's always something to take away from it, even if it's a bad experience, there's still something to take away from it. And something that I heard recently, which I thought was really interesting, is that, you know, there's a part of our brain that we exercise a lot in our youth because we're always learning new things, right? But then at a certain point in adulthood, we stop learning new things, or we stop actively seeking out to learn new things. And so like, if we want to keep that part of our brain like active and, using that muscle, like Lynn said, we got to keep learning new things, you know? So that's, again, like where the classes come in.
Yeah. One of the questions that, the writers, directors that follow us on Twitter asked was, do you have any advice for like a screenwriter that produces a short film? Like, let's say they shot the short film, they're trying to edit it. Like, how should they get it out? Or do you have any advice on like what they should do after they make it?
Yeah. I would say especially for someone who's maybe doing it as a proof of concept for a larger piece.
So, I mean, I don't know any other way to do things other than, from my experience coming from the indie film world where things end up in a festival. So I always try to go the festival route. Even if you're not going to end up premiering at at a place like Sundance or South by or something like that, I think it's still good to find a community. There's definitely probably something about your script that would fit into some sort of, I don't know, whether it's a genre, whether it's, mine are usually Asian American centered or women centered. So like there are festivals that exist about that. I think that experience of going to film festivals and finding other filmmakers and seeing what else is out there is so important. And, also, if you go and you hate it, it's good to know that too, because then what are you doing this for?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, why are you making shorts?
Like, why would you want to do that? You have to love part of, that's a huge part of it is it's sort of like training wheels of what it's like to do a junket eventually. Yeah. So like if you go to a film festival and you start to do press, then you'll get better and better at being able to have interviews, be in front of an audience, do Q&As, which you're going to have to do eventually. Yeah. And if you're not practicing, you're going to be the person who's sitting up there like nervously crossing and uncrossing your legs, not knowing how to sit. Like I remember Melanie once telling me, because she saw me at a Q&A and she was like, she got that Lynn Chen smile. She's got that Lynn Chen smile. Like, but I was like, I got that Lynn Chen smile because I learned on a very big platform at Sundance that when I don't have the Lynn Chen smile, I look miserable. Yeah. Like I'm up on that panel looking like I just want to die.
No, that's the thing. If you're sitting on a panel, because a lot of times you're not speaking, because especially it depends on how many people on the panel. If you're just sitting on stage and your face is 100% neutral, people will look at you and be like, that person wishes they were anywhere else but here.
And then they come by and they take photos, and then you've got that
and it's
resting
all over the
bitch
place.
face, and you regret it. So take it from me. You got to have that Lynn Chen smile.
Gotta have that Lynn Chen
smile. Also, another question that an upcoming actress asked us was like, how do you prepare? Do you have any advice for preparing audition and role? A lot of these people now are doing home Zoom auditions and stuff like that. Do you have any advice for like preparing for auditioning?
First of all, I think everyone's process is different. And I think you need to fall in love with whatever your process is. Look at it like how everyone's breakfast is different. It doesn't make one better or worse. It's just what works for you. So you find what works for you and then learn to love it. Because they can see when you are sitting there being like, why am I doing this? I don't even want to be doing this. This script is stupid. I hate this. This casting director thinks I'm bad. Like I hate my agents. Why I should be reading for the other part. All those things, they can see. They can see. It comes off on your read. So learn to love the entire process, do it, and then let it go. And for me, I've had many different processes. I've even taken different audition classes that have taught me different things. And it took me a while to finally get to the point where I am really comfortable. I know exactly how, when I get an audition sides, I can bang it out in one day. And that's in an hour or two. Sometimes my managers are like, this is too fast. This is too fast.
Like, no, I got it. Let me rock. Let me cook.
But, sometimes that took me a really long time to get to that place because I just love auditioning now. Like when I get those sides, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see what this part is, to learn more. I cancel all my plans. Like I'm not bitter about that at all. And I used to be. I used to be like, I want to go out and play. Yeah. I want to go to dinner with friends. But that's my job. That's the majority of my job. So I gotta love it. And I do. And now it helps because I go on hundreds and hundreds of auditions where I hear nothing. And if I hate what I'm doing, then it's going to be really, really tough to hear those no's. So, and it only takes one.
Only one.
Only takes one.
It's funny you say that because I just recently was listening to a podcast where Danny Strong was talking about creating Dope Sick, and he said he had went everywhere and they said no, 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 and he's like, man, this is a hit book, like, you know what I'm saying? And I got damn, what's the actor who's attached to Dope Sick?
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton. He's like, I got Michael Keaton attached. No, 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 no. And then finally one place said yes. Like, you know what I'm saying? And he actually said in the interview, like, I was shocked nobody wanted this. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, you're right. It's like, it's tough when you're like trudging that. It's like you're just taking shots the whole way down for like one hug.
You got to be friends with that, because otherwise when they say yes, then that imposter syndrome will sink in. You'll be like, hey, there were hundreds of people who said no to me. Are you sure you guys want me? Yeah. You can't even indulge that. Maybe it feels like reality, but it's actually not, because I'm here to tell you that it's not. Yeah. I've never been one of those actors who just books all the time. I have a very large body of work over a long period of time, but it doesn't mean that it's just been, now that I got this, I get this. No, it is a roller coaster. Yeah. And the sooner you become friends with that, the better.
And how do you deal with rejection?
Well, lately, I have a new attitude.
Yes.
Which is that I really welcome. I welcome it. I was just pinned for a role that I was pretty sure I was going to book. Yeah. And when they unpinned me, I was like, okay, what's coming next that I have to look forward to? Because let me tell you, I've tried everything else, every other attitude. I remember when I used to be flown out to LA when I lived in New York City for pilots, and they make you sign your contract before you test. And when you see all those zeros and you're like, this is what my life could be. Right. I know. I remember I used to like play a game where I was like, okay, if I get this, then I will have to buy this horrible, ugly couch. I'd like go and like look through a catalog and be like, I have to buy this couch when I move to LA. And that way, if I don't get the part, then I'll be relieved I don't have to get this couch. I used to like play all kinds of like games with myself, because of it. And thinking it would make me, it never felt better that I didn't have to buy that couch. Every single time I got rejected, like it sucked. So I've tried many different ways of dealing with rejection. And I will tell you that none of it helps. Sinking into it, ignoring it, none of it helps. So I'm trying this new way, and so far it seems to be working pretty well, which is, all right, what's next?
Exactly.
Love that. Okay, well, Lynn Chen,
it's amazing.
You are a dream from heaven above. Where can we follow you online?
LynnChen.com has links to everything.
Yes.
And I'm trying to keep it more at the base of Lynn Chen. I've restarted my blog.
Love it.
And I think that is my space. Not my space, but it's my space. And with the ever-changing algorithms of all the social medias, I'm just looking to find my space again. Cut out the noise.
Love it.
Beautiful. Thanks for joining us today.
So much information.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Two Writers Talking Shit is an original podcast created by Melanie Mars and Saeed Crumpler. Our producer is Kayla Guess. Our audio engineer is T. Kelly.
Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you damn well please. All we ask is that you subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and give us a glowing review.
If you're not going to give us 5 stars or any glowing reviews, then why even log on? Save your rants for an open mic.
If you have any questions for us, and I do mean any, you can email us at twowriterstalkingshit@gmail.com. That's the number 2, and then writerstalkingshit@gmail.com.
See you next episode.
Bye.